Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about the Australian University Teaching Criteria and Standards Project. I'm Denise Chalmers and I'm a joint leader of this project along with the leaders who are from all of the West Australian universities. We also have the support of the Council of Australian Directors of Academic Development. The project seeks to define quality teaching in a university context and to develop a framework integrating principles and evidence of good practice that can be implemented across Australian universities. The impetus for this project has arisen from changes in the higher education sector, and particularly the rise in teaching-focused positions across the Australian sector, and the need to ground the principles in practical, accessible examples of teaching quality aligned to promotional levels for academic staff. The framework was developed through careful analysis of the literature on quality teaching and also combined with examining the UK Higher Education Professional Standards Framework and scans of the Australian, New Zealand and selected US teaching criteria, which inform the clarification of our 7 teaching criteria. We then undertook extensive research to locate the best examples of quality teaching, which were linked to the framework to demonstrate the ways in which the evidence can be presented. The framework underwent several drafts, each draft trialled with feedback informing each iteration. It's undergone several trial processes with West Australian universities and selected Australian universities. Overall, there's been strong support for the framework and its grounded but flexible approach. As a result of these dissemination activities, a number of universities have expressed an interest in trialling the framework in their institutions, and we are now looking at what support the project can provide to assist them. So the teaching criteria framework is intended as a practical, flexible guide to assist a range of different institutions and their academic staff to clarify what constitutes quality teaching at the university level. The framework is underpinned by carefully researched definitions and principles of quality teaching, and they're expressed through 7 criteria. For each criterion, the framework provides examples of practice and concludes with clearly stated expectations of level of performance with suggested sources of evidence academics can use to demonstrate that they meet the expected performance standard. The organising principle of the framework is alignment with academic appointment and promotional levels. It offers examples of evidence and suggests indicative standards of achievement for each of the 5 promotional levels from A to E. The 7 indicative criteria are drawn from university criteria, but also linked to the higher education standards. The first 6 can be found in many universities, but criteria 7, professional and personal effectiveness, was implied but not always explicit, and we felt it was important to include it in its own category. The way that the criteria framework works is it presents each of the 5 levels of promotion across the top. It sets indicative standards. Some of these may apply across each of the levels, becoming more sophisticated over time, but others may not be expected to appear until at a higher academic level. At the bottom, there is always a set of indicative evidence which is linked to the criteria and can be used to show where those standards have been met. The framework is intended to be tailored by each university to fit their particular circumstances. This means the criteria, standards and examples of evidence that we've developed are all indicative. For example, let's look at criterion 6, evaluation of practice and continuing professional development. Although this is fairly generic, an institution might wish to focus on this area differently and change the breadth, emphasis or wording. In our example, the indicative standards might look like these. advancing in sophistication and breadth and moving from a focus on participation to provision to leadership to sustained contribution to the discipline or sector. Or in the next two examples, for some standards there may be a threshold which is reached and no higher standard required, or there might be a combination of these characteristics. The aim is to be flexible but rigorous. The framework also provides examples of indicative evidence for each criterion and suggested sources of evidence academics can use to demonstrate that they've met the expected performance standard. We have gathered and refined a range of indicative evidence, but again the intention is for individual universities to undertake a process of deliberation and customisation to develop the criteria and standards which suit them in their context. Not surprisingly, we've found this process highly constructive in the West Australian universities, with benefits for promoting the framework to staff across the institution and engaging management and academics in setting expectations. Universities can use the framework as a facilitative tool to clarify their expectations and set indicative standards for teaching criteria for recruitment, academic staff development, performance review and promotion. We have adopted an approach which sets level B as a minimum standard for all academic positions, but this might be level C in other universities. We have developed a framework which we feel is applicable to different work profiles, including research and teaching positions, teaching focused and research focused. But again, whether this is appropriate will depend on how a specific university views these profiles. We have adopted an approach in which mandatory standards are identified in bold, but in some universities you might choose to have no mandatory standards or all standards viewed as mandatory. The same approach could be applied to sources of evidence, such as minimum student survey scores. Large universities or dual sector institutions might choose to develop different frameworks for their different sectors. This approach requires the institution to engage with the framework and customise it to their circumstances. The framework can be assembled in different formats, that is, it might be presented by criterion to show progress across the promotional levels, as we've done, or it might be presented by promotional level to show the criteria and standards for that level, and that can be provided and found on the website. We've done extensive search for examples of evidence for each of the criteria, and here are excerpts from 3 of these. These are all available on the website. It's been established and is fully operational, although we are continuing to extend this. Universities may make use of the framework and content interactively, or create their own online framework customised to their institutional needs and processes. We've been very fortunate to receive an extension for this project, and we have identified a number of intended outcomes, but the main focus is to work with universities to embed teaching quality criteria in probation, promotion, review and professional development processes in interested universities. And we want to share the understanding of these successful processes for achieving implementation in different universities through the development of case studies that will be made available through the website. We'd like to engage a national audience, so we're going to hold workshops in capital cities, and we will invite participation by those engaged in developing university criteria, and we would particularly like to engage with universities in the Transforming Practice program. This is our proposed strategy, where we will hold a first workshop followed by ongoing support, a second workshop and case study development for over the period of 2014. For more information, please go to our website and make use of the resources and support that we've provided there. And also you may contact either Denise, Rick or Rachel for further information on either the project or the extension. We do look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.